Because let's be clear, of the isms that are in the military
Man, we live
that
in
a lot of us
America.
face.
People are allowed
Excuse me,
to
I'm
be.
speaking. Do not interrupt a Black trans woman when she's speaking.
Lord, give me strength. So welcome back to the channel today, everyone. So if you haven't seen it yet, I did not one, but two debates for Jubilee. And the conservative trans versus liberal trans came out this Sunday, and oh boy. I actually can't believe I'm reliving this again. It was a crazy day. Let me just start with that. It was a very contentious debate. So yeah. But one thing I will note is, even in the moment, I wasn't able to answer when people were yelling and shouting over me, but I was ultimately given the opportunity to basically debunk what the leftists were saying and get my points across. So I do think that I was still very effective in this debate. That's the first thing, okay? Next, I do want to know off the bat, when you start to watch this stuff, like really when we were filming, I had no issues with Sasha or Shane, and I think we had some really good conversation. However, I did forget, like, I guess I memory hold it, that Shane was the one that actually tossed the first blow at Blair in the entire debate. Like, he was the one that went after her career, you know, basically disrespecting her work and then being disappointed when she makes a statement about, you know, how her career and how, you know, they may be able to work with 25 people at a time where she reaches millions. And then he was disappointed when they came after Blair first. Okay, they came after Blair, disrespected her career, and then because she has the audacity to seemingly downplay something that she wouldn't have done had they even brought it up, she's not wrong. She's not wrong at all. She does a lot for this community, and for them to come in and disrespect her career like that, it was just very disappointing. Now, again, that's the only issue that I really think I had with anything that Shane really threw out there. I mean, we came to some common ground on quite a bit. So, but that was I forgot that that's what happened. Like I said, I guess I kind of memory hold it because he was actually pretty cool the rest of the time that we were there. He challenged me, but he teed me up a lot to give more information and to explain my points more. And I actually think it made my points even more effective. So then Sasha, again, he super kind individual and person, had great points, great conversation. But then I saw he went out on TikTok and started calling out Blair again on TikTok before in the last couple weeks, instead of saying the stuff in person. So I do think that was a little cowardly. But Sasha he's a nice person, and it's, you know, there's no animosity, I guess, between me and him, but it was kind of, again, you had Blair live and in person, and then you couldn't say anything while we were in the moment. I mean, I'm also making this video, so I don't know, they could come and say the same thing about me, I guess, but I feel like I raised the points I wanted to in person. So, also, make sure you go follow Blair, Jessica, and Andrew. I mean, Andrew is honestly like the sweetest person, like, and I absolutely adore him. And he actually doesn't live too far from me, so you might see some stuff with us here in the future. And I'm really excited. I'm really glad that I was able to meet him. And like I said, I think he actually came across as a very sweet person. I think Jessica did as well. They weren't able to talk as much as they could have, but because there was a lot of fighting and bickering and everything like that back and forth, I think people started just to get tired as well, like, of the fighting and bickering, and just wanted to kind of get it over with at points. But they're both really great, and obviously Blair's the queen, so go follow all of them. So let's start with the prompts. Now, this is one of the biggest issues I see, is that they released it with the prompts in different orders than we filmed it, which you can actually go see the actual order of everything we filmed in order in the extended cut on Jubilee's Patreon channel. So what it was is the military ban was first, followed by the trans bathroom, then the non-binary question. Then we took a break and came back with the prompt that is on their Patreon, which ironically is the prompt that we all found the most common ground on. And it was basically asking if schools should teach gender and sex education. Then I believe it was doctors manipulating people, gender affirming care is suicide prevention, and the top surgery question was actually last. So keep that in mind and understand that Blair's career was the first thing that was attacked. That was the first attack in the entire debate. And so with the editing, it makes it look like she took a shot at the non-binary person when she had already just been being attacked like crazy before that, right? So that makes Blair actually look bad, and that is kind of a biased editing in my opinion. So this is actually really the only criticism though that I have about the editing. Like, this was actually Jubilee's longest video I think that they've ever released. It was an hour and a half, and usually their common ground episodes are like 45 minutes to an hour. And then they released a 2-hour uncut version on their Patreon, and they basically pulled an entire prompt. So they they had to edit out in a lot of different areas. I know there was one area where it really is weird because you see them cut out, and Blair's like, "How are you going to cut there?" And I can't say my piece, and it was true. And yes, she did go off. She mentioned in her video on this that Blossom continued to scream about race, and it really made Blossom look awful. She looked very racist in my opinion, and calling Blair's whiteness as saying that our whiteness is destroying her community because of our whiteness. That is a very racist statement in my opinion. And Blair's not white. She's like Hispanic, and she's like half Hispanic, half white, and then she said on her video she's got like 3% black and just a bunch of other stuff too. She was trying to play the oppression Olympics in this, and we shut that down. I mean, like I said, the first thing she says in the trans military debate is about race. Like, she leads with that, and we really weren't having any of it. And then, like I said, it's actually the last prompt that she tries to bring it up again. We kind of shut that down early on because your blackness has nothing to do with your transness, and this is a trans debate. Like, that's what I said in there. But go check out Blair's video. I think she does a very good job of breaking down how much it was cut, because she was the one that was dealt most of the effects because of the cuts, because it was a lot of her being attacked. I mean, though the editing still, I think, represented what happened really well, I think the only thing that the cuts do is it would have actually made the liberals look even worse than they already look in the main video. And when I say the liberals, like I said, I'm not necessarily talking about Shane and Sasha, except for Shane's first quote. It's mostly Alexander and Blossom. They didn't come across looking very well, and it shows in the Jubilee's comment section as well. So you can go look at those comment section, and yeah, you can see that. And and Blair doesn't need defending, but I'm going to anyway. So here's the thing. Blair has actually done more to normalize trans people than anybody else on the planet with her platform. By working with conservatives, many of whom would otherwise have lumped all trans people in with the crazy activists, she has shown them that we are not all the same, and she's been doing this for over a decade. And that does something. I mean, like she said, she reaches millions, and not just in some liberal echo chamber, right? I think social conservatives would have taken over with all their crazy laws if it wasn't for Blair and people being like, hey, yes, some of these people are crazy, but check out Blair White. Blair White's cool. We like Blair on the conservative side. So that has done a lot to them being like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't lump all trans adults in the same way. And now we have a bunch of us that have stepped out because Blair led this way, and we've started to speak out against the activists that have really ruined our reputation and ruined our acceptance rate in society. Like, that's what Blair is. There's people all over. There's been so many people that have come out because Blair's been standing out and inspiring people to speak out. And the more of us that speak out, the more acceptance we gain in the conservative movement, right? If conservatives can accept us, then what are the liberals fighting for? And I think in this debate, you see exactly what they're fighting for, and what they think about, even those trans people that dare to stand out against them. So this debate went off the rails very quickly. There are a number of times the director had to come and actually speak to us. Like, literally, obviously you don't see it. She walked around the desk and came out, and like in the first prompt, she was like, I've already been in this episode more than I even want to be. So let's do this. And yeah, she started to establish new rules, right? So the first rule was that Blair and Blossom had to speak last. And then you actually see it in the episode where she's like, hey, I know this is a common ground debate, and this is a debate, but no speaking over people. When somebody's talking, you wait. So if you see, like, there's times where I want to interject, but I don't want to get yelled at. Now, one of the times I actually got yelled at by name by the director was cut out, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And like I said, I think that this actually makes what happened that day, like, look tame compared to what really happened. So, interestingly enough, the first prompt, like I said, was about the trans military ban. I was the only veteran on the panel, and I was cut off, right? I was cut off multiple times. I kind of took a little bit of offense when Blossom basically started to claim that the military is racist and bigoted when she's never served. She has no idea what she's talking about. And I was trying to correct that while everyone else was shouting.
I just really hope that the people at the top that you're referring to aren't transphobic, because let's be clear of the isms that are in the military.
Man, we live
that
in
a lot of
America.
us face.
People are allowed
Excuse me,
to
I'm
be.
speaking. Do not interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking.
You've
Let's be
interrupted
very
me
clear.
hella
When it comes
times.
to when
Hella
it comes
times.
to isms.
Did the interrupter just say
if you
use
are
her
black,
skin tone
if
to
you
say
are
you couldn't
black,
interrupt her?
if you are black and
That's
trans
amazing.
and you want to go into the military, I am quite sure that my experience would not look the same as y'all's. And if we can't wake that up, then we're really being complicit.
They don't look at your race.
I don't think your
But
skin
you-
tone makes any difference.
Well,
As somebody,
yes, it does.
No,
Well,
as
I'm
somebody,
sorry.
no, as somebody who's
But it
serving in the
doesn't.
military,
For you to
as
tell a
somebody who-
black person
no,
that is so
as somebody who's serving,
problematic. For you to
So why
tell
do
a
you have
person
to
of
put
color
black in
here,
front of it?
because this is my experience and this is my reality. First of all,
It has nothing
that
to
is
do
so
with your transness,
disrespectful
though.
to tell a person
I'm
of
gonna have an
color,
aneurysm.
a black person, how they should feel. How dare you sit up there
Okay,
and
well,
say
no,
that?
it's disrespectful
as
for you
somebody
to
who's
tell a white
serving-
person
Hold on,
that.
just a
You
second. Let me
screamed
finish
at
my
him,
point.
and you
I
just
did not
screamed.
scream
Yes,
at a
you
point.
did.
No,
No, you're
you
being
wanted to come and
disrespectful.
combat him.
Rewind the tape,
You
you
wanted me
screamed.
here and I'm
You
here.
screamed.
So what you
Rewind
gonna
the
do?
tape, that was good.
You wanted me here, so I'm here.
Replay.
You in
Right,
particular.
so be-
We just
so
want
be
you to calm
respectful.
down and speak like
Be
a
in
person.
particular, what are
It's
you
not my
talking
fault.
about?
It's not my
Let's
fault that
pause.
y'all don't understand respect.
I'm sorry. Let's pause.
You're
Oh
interrupting
my
everything.
God.
Can you please stop?
Okay.
We're good.
You need to calm down.
No, you
We're
do,
gonna
honey.
change the rules.
My God, someone get a Xanax for her.
Oh,
rules
keep
are,
it
let's-
cute, girl. Keep it real cute.
Oh,
Your
that's
bodyguard's
inappropriate,
outside,
but the rest
keep
of
it
shit
real
isn't.
cute
Okay.
now.
Look, your skin tone doesn't have anything to do with your transness. And this is about trans in the military. This is a trans debate. And again, we're talking about the trans bathroom issue, and I think everyone kind of came to an understanding that it is men that is causing the issues, and, you know, cross-dressing men mostly, or just self-ID men who are utilizing the bathrooms and is making it harder for trans women to just, you know, blend into society, right? And we can go down the rabbit hole of saying how that actually hurts, like, butch women, as well as detransitioners and everything like that. I've talked about that before on this channel. But what really got me, like, we're all like, yes, it's this and this, and it's mostly, you know, people that don't, you know, aren't transitioning or anything like that. And then Alexander, the non-binary person, then seemed to take the stance of, I don't care if I make women uncomfortable, as long as I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly, like, I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in the restroom. Men, when I say men, I mean men. I'm not talking about trans women. So being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this, you can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting. I thought this was a trans debate. That's
Oh,
what I
don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary
That's what I
people,
thought.
non-binary
I
people
will
fall
fall
under the
under
trans
I will say
umbrella.
that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe you could educate yourself a little bit
I
on
think
that.
I could
and maybe
educate
then you would figure out,
I think I could educate
you know, what
right?
the reality is
I'm
and what
sure
trans
there's
actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
Wow, it's
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about restrooms. As a trans, non-binary person, when I go into a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this, my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me in danger.
It's me. Like, gender nonconforming men are pretty well accepted, and Blair is right to cause as little disturbance as possible. So use the restroom of where you're going to cause the least disturbance. But when your personality is the disturbance, that's an issue. Next, I want to kind of point out that Alexander admitted during this debate basically that he is non-binary because he was following a social contagion. Listen.
Look, I actually understand like a lot of the points that are being made here from the conservative side because I grew up conservative. So it was not until my later age that I kind of decided like, you know what, let me be more open to different types of communication, different types of people. I actually talked so much shit about pronouns. Like they, them, all this. I was like, what is this trash? When it first started really coming out, I did not agree with it. I was like, what is this? This is stupid. How can you be a them? Blah, 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 blah.
You were
and I did the
correct.
whole thing, the grammatically. You're interrupting me.
But you were correct. I'm
But
just saying. I'm agreeing with
they
you.
asked you not to comment, and you're commenting. So if you could stop, that would be great. Thank you. So anyway, as I was saying, so I changed my mind because I got to spend time around other people who were non-binary, who were non-conforming, and I got to speak with them, and I got to experience their life and their experiences. And then I realized myself, I'm like, shit, maybe this is what I've been experiencing my whole life, only because I was exposed to it. If I would have never been exposed to it, I would have never known that this could have been my experience. And I would have lived the rest of my life as a different person, as somebody who I'm not.
So real talk. Transsexuals, as Blair said, have a medical condition that we have known about since we basically became self-aware. For me, it was around 4 years old. What almost every trans person that I know that's happy in their transition has known since they were about 4 years old. This is not just something that appears later in life unless you experience some sort of trauma, which Blair nailed that actually in a later prompt when she was talking about, what happens in trauma. So to say you found a group of people and realized you could be non-binary means you changed your personality and are appropriating our medical condition for community and clout. And then Alexander failed to answer my question about what his dysphoria is. And I provided him with what gender dysphoria actually is. So when people ask what the definition, I gave it, right? Can I ask a question? I just actually want to ask you a question. What is your dysphoria, though? Because gender dysphoria, or sex dysphoria, as I would rather call it, is an uncomfortability between my secondary sex characteristics, not just what I wear on a daily basis, because masculinity and femininity doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
But that's not true. But that is not true. You can have dysphoria without having to be dysphoric about your sex parts.
But what is your
You can have
dysphoria?
dysphoria
What
about
is your
anything.
dysphoria?
Straight cis women have dysphoria about their breasts all the time. They get breast augmentation.
not dysphoria.
That doesn't mean that I'm not dysphoric about certain things. That doesn't mean that. And you don't know my life. You're not in my life daily.
That's why I asked you a question.
You don't know what I
cannot-
experience, the different things that I experience personally.
I cannot believe that I grew up as, this 5-year-old little kid experiencing just crippling gender dysphoria, like horrible thoughts, struggled so much my entire life to be sitting in this room and you're explaining to her what dysphoria is.
I have my experience. It
It's
doesn't mean that I didn't
amazing.
have crippling.
You got a different
It doesn't
experience.
mean
You
that
got a
I
different
myself-
experience.
we all have a different.
So in this clip, Alexander is actually confusing like gender dysphoria with body dysmorphia, or just being uncomfortable in your body and want to aesthetically change your body. People with body dysmorphia have plastic surgery all the time to make themselves feel better about themselves. Doesn't mean they're trans. Like a woman who wants bigger boobs is not trans because she wants to get plastic surgery. I do think some of this inclusion is simply about getting insurance to pay for it, because he did mention how insurance won't pay for some stuff because they don't pay for elective procedures usually, which, like I said, he noted at one point. And then they all kind of realize, like, one of the reasons why they want a bigger community is to have more numbers to fight the system. Like they kind of admit, like, we're different, and we should not be confused and lumped in with each other. And then they all say we should be one big community, even though we're different. Like, again, Blair nailed this. Like, there's so many different ways that, like, to identify in this community. Why would we not, like, add an N to the community instead of just lumping them in with the T? We are different. And when, you know, the non-binary people are creating a lack of understanding in our medical condition, it hurts our acceptance rates because people become more ignorant about it, and it just makes things look confusing and crazy, and we all get lumped in with as one thing when we have a medical condition. And like Blair said, he's appropriating it. Now, I think the last three prompts kind of blend together because they all have to do with the medical industry. One part that was most interesting is both sides essentially agreed that the data is not there to prove that this is a life-saving to not affirm minors. The difference is conservatives want to halt the massive experiment that's taking place on kids and do actual studies. And I appreciate Shane kind of teeing me up to explain the misinformations about the bans that have happened across the country and how we would do clinical trials. I think I had the common ground though, because everybody here kind of also admitted that we don't have the research. And so when we don't have the research, we don't push forward with transitioning children until we have the research. We do the research.
To your point about gaining research, how do you expect the medical community to gain access to research if we're just preventing these folks to actually go through any of the processes to learn the scientific method of what is happening? Just like with AZT drugs, where we learned that that was actually harming us, and now we have things like Biktarvy.
Yeah, so it's the same way as we have with any research. You have a very select, very heavy gatekeeping crew that you're allowed to create these studies around. And you need a good checklist to be like, these people show all the actual signs of gender dysphoria. They are having like very strong distress, and in every state that's passed bans on access for minors also has provisions except for in the most extreme cases to conduct studies on. And while all the trans men said kids should get top surgery after maybe 16, but not before that, they use their personal experience and their struggles with bindings and how it has affected their lives. But then when I asked, they admitted that they didn't actually do it safely, right? So, again, if you're a child and you're not actually able to follow doctor's orders and do it safely, and you're admitting that's the reason why you have issues, that's kind of the problem. Children need strict guidance, and y'all didn't even have that. You admitted that you were binding all the time when you're not even supposed to do it for more than 6 to 8 hours, as you told me. That is a reason why we don't let children do this, because binding's inconvenient, because you can't do it all the time like you guys did. That doesn't mean that we should be, giving children double mastectomies because they can't be relied upon to bind safely. See what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like it was kind of a cell phone. You made my point. Another cell phone was actually when Blossom walked herself into a corner when she straight up said, adults don't even know if this is right for them, with Blair's perfect response.
More people.
Even among adults, we all do different things in our transition. Some of us
correct.
want bottom, some of us don't, some of us want top, some of us don't.
I
So
understand,
you
but-
need a lot of time as an adult to figure out what you want to do.
But see, the thing is, though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do. So that's the
Exactly.
kind
So
of the
how can a
thing.
child?
But
But
see,
I
children,
wanna touch
wait a
on
minute,
one
let's
thing
not,
you
let's,
said.
let's not
Planet.
underestimate the power of these kids today, okay? They are very much more educated because they have much more resources and access than we did
Wow.
coming up. So let's be
So
very
they're
clear about
advanced
that.
and they can
when we
consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that
If adults can't even make sure that this is right for them, then how can a child? The best response you can have. I mean, you walked yourself into it, Blossom. And then there was this other cell phone from Blossom right here.
There was a little number that the life expectancy of a trans woman was 35. That was rescinded a couple years ago after like over a decade of that being like just factually, shared. And I always thought that my life was statistically going to end at 35. So, but those numbers were based on, by those organizations, prostitute deaths. So it's not always the most reputable numbers they're getting. You know what I mean? And these activist organizations are political too. We get caught up in calling them activists and we think it's this emotional, spiritual thing, but they are political organizations.
Yeah, so I am an activist, and so a lot of what you're talking about really was focused more on Black trans women, because Black trans women do not live past the age of 35, because oftentimes it is our group within the trans community that is often murdered, we're often harassed, we're often discriminated against, and so a lot more of that focus has had to be around Black, brown, indigenous folks, because oftentimes the research goes missing for us.
They sourced it from prostitutes, though. That was the source of the
But
stat.
see, the thing is, though, even when we talk about prostitutes, trans women have to sometimes participate in sex work to survive.
But they based it off cis prostitutes. Sorry,
But-
I'm done. It was
yes,
just, it was false number.
So from what I understand is, a lot of that focus has always been around Black trans women, because we do not get to see the age of 35. You are in a place, when I say privilege, you're in a place of privilege where you do not have to worry about the harassment and the discrimination that I face. I face as a Black person. I face as a
We're
Black
not gonna
person.
get
I'm
into
not going to
that.
say that you do not experience harassment or discrimination. That's not what I'm saying, because like you said, you're a person of nuance, and so follow me here. When I come as a person of color, as a Black trans woman, you and I do not get to have that same experience. There are
You went to the
rooms,
White House, I didn't.
There are more rooms that you get to walk in that I will be forbidden in. And one thing about it is, that's why it's important, like someone like me has to create her own space to be able to
did I.
counteract what you're doing. And I'm
So
not
did I.
saying that you don't. But what I'm saying here is, what I'm trying to get you to understand is, my Blackness should not have to pay for your whiteness that
doesn't even make
is
sense.
destroying my community.
I'm
because of
destroying your
privilege.
community.
So are you gonna tell all of my exes
How are you gonna
that?
say that and then that's the end?
To one say that the death stats are on Black trans women seems to be a shot at the Black community. But then to go on and say you wouldn't be allowed places we are, like, honey, you admitted that you went to the White House. That is a door that 99% of Americans will never walk through. Also, like I said earlier, Blair's not white. So Blossom likes to bring the race card into everything, and even in past debates that I've seen with her. And I mean, that last statement really, it just seems really racist itself. There was one point, like, I realized she does not think very highly of herself. She puts on a big front, but she plays the victim. And I think that when you're playing the victim card like this all the time, at a point I kind of start to feel sorry for her. You know, I don't know. Now, this is another thing. So in the last prompt, when Alexander was saying something about us conservatives being obsessed with other people's kids, this is a point where I actually got yelled at by the director, because the director was trying to cut, because it was starting to go off the rails, you know, as Blair and Alexander kind of went back and forth, and that's when he called Blair disgusting for the second time, like I said. But as we were going, I made the point, as the director was kind of still saying stuff, I said there are a whole lot of things parents can't consent to for their kids. Like, we don't allow parents to abuse their children, and we don't allow parents to consent to sex for their children. And yes, the director yelled at me by name to stop, because I had to get that out. That was one point that I made that was edited out, and I'm kind of disappointed that that one didn't make it in there. Even though that I was getting yelled at, it was fine, because it's an extremely important point in this debate. Now, I do think I make a similar point in the second Jubilee debate. I'll just have to see. Pretty sure I did. So we'll see what's in that debate as well. That debate was a much calmer debate, I will say. I believe it's supposed to come out on the 22nd. Okay, so yeah, that one was a little bit more calm. But I have some more stuff to even talk about that one too, because it was a little bit crazy for me personally in this debate, and you'll understand why when it comes out, right? So, but finally, I do actually want to just say something about the Jubilee team, okay? So Jubilee, the whole team for me was actually really amazing. Like, they treated me with nothing but respect. I mean, I guess they are a a left-leaning organization, but I will say on site, everything that they did, it was a very professional organization. And really because I was doing 2 debates, I really felt like they treated me like I was part of the team when I was there. So, you know, it was a long day and they definitely took care of me. Like I was there for probably 8 hours. It was kind of, actually, no, I was there for longer because I think I got there at 11 a.m. and I didn't leave till 8 p.m. So yeah, it was like 9 hours that I was there on site. But they were a very professional team, and honestly, they were very mum. Like I said, I talked to a lot of the camera people. I talked to a lot, like in between the 2 shoots, I was able to kind of interact with the team a little bit more. And everybody there, you would never know like their political stances or anything like that. They were all very respectful and kind, and I did enjoy the shoot. I did enjoy working with them. Like I said, this one was crazy. The second one, again, spoiler, it's a lot more chill. But again, go make sure to go follow Blair, Andrew, and Jessica across all social media platforms that they're on. But first, let me know what you guys think about this and what you thought about the debate in the comment section. Follow me across all social media platforms. Click that like and subscribe button, and I will see you next time.